My name is Garrett Wilson, and I'm 32 years old. I've always been the practical one in my family, working as an electrician while my younger sister Brianna chased internet fame. We used to be close, but her obsession with likes and followers created a growing divide between us. When our parents left on vacation, Brianna begged to host her exclusive influencer party at their house. Little did I know that when she told me I was embarrassing for her influencer friends, it would lead me to uncover the fraudulent scheme she'd been running online. If you're watching this, let me know where you're tuning in from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever stood your ground against someone who tried to make you feel less than. Now let me tell you how it all went down. Growing up, Brianna and I were inseparable despite our 4-year age difference. We built blanket forts in the living room, rode bikes around the neighborhood, and defended each other from playground bullies. I still remember how she'd run to me with her scraped knees, trusting that her big brother would make everything better. Those simple childhood days feel like a lifetime ago now. The first real changes started when Brianna turned 16. While I was taking community college classes and working part-time at the local hardware store to learn practical skills, Brianna became obsessed with her appearance and social media presence. Every family dinner was interrupted by her need to photograph her food before eating. Every family outing became a photo shoot opportunity. Our parents thought it was just a phase, but I noticed something shifting in her. By the time I completed my electrician certification at 24, Brianna was already building what she called her personal brand online. She started with fashion posts, then makeup tutorials, and eventually lifestyle content that portrayed a luxurious existence she wasn't actually living. Our middle-class suburban reality didn't match the glamorous life she projected online. "You just don't understand the industry," she'd tell me whenever I questioned the authenticity of her posts. "Nobody wants to see reality. They want aspiration." Over the next few years, Brianna's following grew steadily. Not massive by industry standards, but enough that she started getting small sponsorship deals and free products. The validation fueled her conviction that she was on the right path, while my stable career as an electrician seemed increasingly boring in comparison. "Why work so hard for so little recognition?" she once asked me after I completed a difficult electrical installation. "I can make more from one sponsored post than you do in a day." I tried explaining the satisfaction of building something tangible, of helping people by ensuring their homes were safely wired, but she'd already stopped listening, distracted by notifications on her phone. Last month, our parents decided to take a 3-week Mediterranean cruise to celebrate their 30th wedding anniversary. Since I lived just 20 minutes away in my own apartment, they asked me to check on the house regularly and water the plants. Brianna had moved to a small apartment in the city 2 years ago, trying to project urban sophistication to her followers. 3 days after our parents left, Brianna called me with unusual enthusiasm. "Garrett! I need a huge favor," she said, her voice taking on that sweet tone she only used when wanting something. "I've been invited to co-host this amazing networking event with some major influencers, but my apartment is way too small. And I already knew where this was heading. And Mom and Dad's house would be perfect. It's in that upscale neighborhood, has that gorgeous backyard, and plenty of space. Please, can you give me the alarm code? I promise we'll take care of everything." I hesitated. Brianna, Mom and Dad left me in charge of the house. They didn't say anything about parties. "It's not a party," she insisted. "It's a professional networking event. These connections could change my entire career. Besides, nothing will get damaged. We're adults, not teenagers." After significant pressure and her promise to follow strict guidelines about guest numbers and house rules, I reluctantly agreed but insisted on being present during the event. "Fine," she sighed. "But please wear something decent. These are influential people." The day before the party, Brianna arrived with 3 of her influencer friends: Madison, a beauty vlogger with a perpetual pout; Ashley, a fitness influencer who mentioned her protein powder sponsor every 3rd sentence; and Ryan, a self-proclaimed investment guru, who seemed to primarily invest in designer clothes. They swept through the house, discussing camera angles and lighting as if I wasn't there. While getting water from the kitchen, I overheard their conversation from the living room. "So that's your brother?" Madison whispered, not quietly enough. "He doesn't look anything like you." "I know," Brianna replied with a sigh. "He's always been so basic. No aesthetic awareness whatsoever." "What does he do again?" asked Ryan. "He's an electrician," Brianna said, her tone making my profession sound like something embarrassing. "Yikes," Ashley laughed. "Couldn't he at least dress better? Those jeans and flannel are so outdated." "That's why I told him to stay upstairs tomorrow night," Brianna added. "He doesn't exactly fit the vibe we're creating." I stood frozen in the kitchen, the glass of water in my hand suddenly heavy. When I walked into the living room, their conversation abruptly stopped. "Just checking if you need anything else," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. Brianna glanced at her friends before pulling me aside into the hallway. "Garrett, I need to talk to you about tomorrow," she said, lowering her voice. "I think it might be better if you just weren't around during the party." "What do you mean?" "This is our parents' house. I promised them I'd be here. Look," she said, placing a hand on my arm. "You're embarrassing for my influencer friends. They're expecting a certain type of crowd, and you don't exactly fit in. Maybe you could just go to your apartment for the night?" The words stung more than I wanted to admit. This was the little sister I'd protected and cared for, now ashamed to have me at a party in our own family home. "I'm not leaving," I said firmly. "But don't worry, I won't cramp your style. I'll stay out of your way." She didn't even try to deny her words or apologize. Instead, she looked relieved and said, "Thanks, you're the best," before rejoining her friends, leaving me standing alone in the hallway of my childhood home, suddenly feeling like a stranger. That evening, after Brianna and her friends left to get dinner, I found myself scrolling through her social media accounts. I told myself it was just curiosity about her online presence, but truthfully, I wanted to understand what made her see me as someone to be embarrassed by. What I found instead raised serious concerns. Brianna's recent post showcased a dramatic increase in luxury items, a designer handbag that must have cost thousands, meals at exclusive restaurants, and even hints at a luxury car purchase. None of this aligned with what I knew about her financial situation. Her apartment was small, and while she got free products and some sponsorships, I doubted they generated enough income for this lifestyle. As I dug deeper into her feed, I noticed a recurring hashtag Helping Hearts Fund. Curious, I clicked on it and discovered a fundraising campaign Brianna had launched 3 months ago. According to her emotional posts, she was raising money for children with heart conditions at Portland Children's Hospital. "Every dollar helps these brave little fighters," one caption read beneath a photo of Brianna pretending to wipe away a tear. "Swipe up to donate directly." The campaign had apparently raised over $30,000 already, with Brianna posting regular, milestone celebration photos, often featuring expensive restaurant meals or new clothing items she'd treated herself to after working so hard on the campaign. Something felt off. I searched for Portland Children's Hospital's official accounts and found no mention of Brianna's fundraiser. Their verified donation partners were listed on their website, and Helping Hearts Fund wasn't among them. My stomach knotted as I checked the donation link from her profile. It led to a payment page with a professional design, featuring heart graphics and children's drawings, but the fine print at the bottom contained vague language about administrative costs and campaign management fees. The money wasn't going directly to any hospital. I dug through months of her posts, finding a disturbing pattern. Each time the fundraiser reached a milestone, Brianna would post about a new luxury purchase within days. The timeline of her spending aligned perfectly with donation surges. My phone pinged with a text from Jason, my best friend since high school. "How's house sitting going? Want to grab a beer tomorrow?" I needed to talk to someone about what I'd found, so I called him instead of texting back. "Jason, I think my sister is running a fake charity," I said without preamble when he answered. "Whoa, back up. What are you talking about? I explained everything I'd discovered, from the unverified charity to the suspicious spending patterns. That's serious stuff, man, Jason said. Charity fraud is a criminal offense. You need to be absolutely sure before you do anything. I know. That's why I'm calling you. I need a reality check. Am I overreacting? No, this sounds legitimately suspicious. But you need more concrete evidence. Bank statements, transfer records, anything that shows the money trail. And then what? Turn my own sister into the police? The thought made me sick. First step is to confront her privately, Jason advised. Give her a chance to explain or make it right. Maybe there's some explanation we're missing. You're right, I agreed. I'll talk to her tomorrow before the party. I spent the rest of the night documenting everything I'd found, taking screenshots of posts, donation pages, and the suspicious timing of her luxury purchases. The next morning, Brianna arrived early to set up for the party. I asked to speak with her privately in the kitchen while her friends unloaded decorations from the car. I need to ask you something important, I began carefully. I notice your fundraiser for the Children's Hospital has been doing well. Her face brightened. Oh yeah, it's been amazing. People are so generous. The thing is, I can't find any connection between your fund and the actual hospital. How is the money being transferred to them? Her smile faltered slightly. It's complicated. I work with an intermediary that handles the administrative side. And what percentage actually reaches the hospital? Why are you interrogating me? Her defensive tone confirmed my suspicions. This is exactly why I didn't want you around my friends. You're always so judgmental about my career. This isn't about your career, Brianna. It's about potentially defrauding people who think they're donating to sick children. Her face hardened. You're just jealous that I'm successfully building something while you waste your potential fixing light switches. Don't pretend this is about anything else. Show me proof that the money is going to the hospital. I pressed. Just show me that, and I'll drop it. I don't have to prove anything to you. She snapped. And if you say anything about this to Mom and Dad or anyone else, I'll make sure they know how you've always tried to sabotage my success because you can't stand that I'm doing better than you. She stormed out of the kitchen, leaving me stunned by her reaction. This wasn't the sister I thought I knew. Later, I called Jason to update him. She basically confirmed it by not denying anything. I told him. But she's threatening to turn my family against me if I speak up. Document everything, Jason advised. If she's really scamming people, the truth will come out eventually. But you'll need evidence when it does. By 6 o'clock that evening, our parents' modest suburban home had transformed into something unrecognizable. Rented furniture replaced the comfortable family pieces. Professional lighting equipment created dramatic shadows across the walls. A catering team bustled around setting up elaborate food displays, while a temporary bar occupied the corner of the living room. This was far beyond the small gathering Brianna had initially described. I counted at least 4 security personnel stationed around the property, a DJ setting up on the back patio, and what appeared to be a professional photographer directing staff on optimal camera setups. Brianna, I pulled her aside as she inspected the flower arrangements. This is way more than we agreed on. You said 30 people max, no alcohol, and definitely no moving furniture out. Relax. She dismissed my concerns with a wave. Everything's insured. Besides, this event is sponsored by Ultra Vodka and Luminous Cosmetics. They're covering most costs. That's not the point. You completely disregarded our agreement. She glanced at her watch impatiently. Guests arrive in an hour, and I still need to change. We can discuss this tomorrow. As she turned to leave, I noticed a backdrop being installed near the staircase with logos for #Helping Hearts Fund prominently displayed alongside her personal branding. Is this party connected to your fundraiser? I asked, my voice tightening. Of course. 10% of tonight's sponsorship money goes to the cause. It's a win-win. 10%? That's it. And does that money actually reach the hospital? Her expression darkened. You're still on that? Let it go, Garrett. Tonight is important for my career. Before I could respond, her phone chimed. Her face lit up as she answered. Trevor. You're early. Come in, come in. Trevor Brooks, Brianna's boyfriend of 8 months, strode in wearing designer clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I'd met him twice before and disliked him both times. He worked in crypto consulting, whatever that meant, and matched Brianna's superficial values perfectly. The place looks amazing, babe, he said, kissing her cheek before noticing me. Oh, hey. Greg, right? Garrett, I corrected flatly. Right. The electrician brother. He looked around. Hey, since you're here, one of the outdoor outlets isn't working for the patio heaters. Can you take a look? Before I could respond, Brianna jumped in. Actually, Garrett was just leaving, weren't you? No, I stated firmly. I told you I'd stay out of your way, but I'm not leaving the house. Trevor exchanged a look with Brianna. Thought you said you handled this? I tried, she muttered. Look, man. Trevor turned to me with forced friendliness. This is a pretty exclusive event. Industry professionals, potential sponsors. Having random people hanging around sends the wrong message. Random people? This is my parents' house. And they're cool with the party, right? Trevor pressed. The truth was, our parents didn't know the full extent of what Brianna had planned. They thought she was having a small gathering of friends, not transforming their home into a nightclub. Don't worry about my brother, Brianna interjected. He'll stay in the basement during the party. I'm not hiding in the basement, I said incredulously. Trevor stepped closer, lowering his voice. Look, no offense, but you don't exactly fit the aesthetic we're going for. Your presence could actually damage Brianna's brand. If you care about your sister's career, you'll make yourself scarce. I looked at Brianna, waiting for her to defend me, but she just gave me a pleading look. Just for tonight, Garrett. Please? The guests started arriving at 7, and by 8, the house was packed with at least 70 people, all dressed in expensive outfits, taking selfies, and networking loudly over the pounding music. I retreated to the kitchen, which had become command central for the catering staff. Around 9, I overheard Madison talking to another influencer by the refrigerator. The hashtag Helping Hearts Fund has been brilliant for Brianna's engagement. She's gained like 20,000 followers since launching it. How much has she raised? The other woman asked. Over 30K, but after expenses and management, maybe 5,000 actually goes to the cause. But that's still good, right? I felt sick. Confirmation that most donors' money wasn't reaching sick children as promised. Deciding I needed space, I headed down to the basement, not to hide as Brianna wanted, but to gather my thoughts. The basement had always been my sanctuary growing up, where I'd built electronics projects and read technical manuals in peace. As I sat on the old couch, I noticed Brianna's laptop open on the side table. She must have been using it earlier to coordinate event details. Without fully considering my actions, I moved to the laptop and found it unlocked. I knew searching through her computer crossed a line, but after what I'd overheard, I felt justified. I quickly found a folder labeled HHF Financials and opened it. Inside were spreadsheets detailing incoming donations, administrative withdrawals, and minimal transfers to what appeared to be a general donation portal, not directly to the hospital. One document labeled Expense Justifications contained prepared responses to potential questions about fund management. It included lines like, as the public face of the campaign, maintaining an aspirational image requires investment in appropriate attire and experiences. I took photos of the screens with my phone, documenting everything. What the hell are you doing? I looked up to see Brianna standing at the bottom of the stairs, her face a mixture of shock and fury. Finding out the truth, I answered, standing up. Only $5,000 out of $30,000 actually went to charity, Brianna? That's fraud. You went through my private files? She shrieked. That's illegal. So is charity fraud, I countered. You don't understand how this industry works, she said, striding over and slamming the laptop closed. Building a personal brand requires investment. The fundraiser benefits everyone. The hospital gets donations they wouldn't have otherwise, and I build my platform to raise even more in the future. So you admit you're using donation money for personal expenses? I'm the one putting in all the work. The campaign wouldn't exist without me. Taking a management fee is standard practice. A management fee of over 80%? While posting about every dollar helps these brave little fighters. You're lying to people, Brianna. Her face contorted with anger. Get out. You're not welcome here anymore. This is our parents' house, not yours. Fine, then stay in the basement, and don't come upstairs. I mean it, Garrett. If you ruin this night for me, you'll regret it. She stormed back upstairs, leaving me alone with the weight of what I'd discovered. My own sister was running a fraudulent charity, using sick children to fund her lifestyle, and had just kicked me out of our family home. I heard the lock click on the basement door above. She had actually locked me in the basement of my own parents' house. I sat in the dim basement for nearly an hour, hearing the party roar above me. The bass from the music vibrated through the ceiling, and occasionally I could hear cheering or laughter. Through the small window near the ceiling, I could see additional guests arriving, far exceeding the capacity our parents' house should safely hold. Testing the basement door confirmed Brianna had indeed locked it. I could have forced it open. The lock was flimsy, but that would only escalate the situation into a public confrontation, which wouldn't help anyone. I needed time to think. The basement had an exterior door that led to the backyard. Our parents had installed it years ago when they briefly considered converting the space into a rental unit. I quietly slipped outside, careful to avoid the crowded patio area where guests were taking photos with sparklers despite the nearby trees creating a fire hazard. I walked around to the front of the house and got into my truck, which was parked on the street. I wasn't leaving, just creating space to consider my options. From this vantage point, I could see the constant flow of people entering, many live streaming their arrival on their phones. As an electrician, I understood the house's systems better than anyone. Our parents' home wasn't designed to handle this many people, this much electronic equipment, and this level of power consumption simultaneously. The electrical panel, located in the side yard and accessible through an external door, wasn't locked. Only licensed electricians like myself were typically knowledgeable enough to safely operate it. An idea formed in my mind. I wouldn't do anything dangerous, but perhaps I could send a message without causing a scene. I sat in my truck for another 20 minutes, weighing the ethics of my plan. Eventually, I decided the potential consequences of letting Brianna's fraud continue were worse than temporarily disrupting her party. At 11:30, when the party appeared to be at its peak based on the noise level and social media activity I monitored on my phone, I quietly approached the electrical panel. Through the side windows, I could see dozens of people inside, many filming themselves or live streaming. Perfect timing. I opened the panel and located the main breaker switches. With my electrician's knowledge, I knew exactly which circuits powered which areas of the house. I didn't cut all power, that could potentially create safety hazards in the darkness. Instead, I strategically cut power to the main living areas, entertainment systems, and decorative lighting while leaving some safety lighting and refrigeration circuits intact. The reaction was immediate and audible even from outside. Confused shouts replaced the music, followed by the glow of dozens of phone flashlights illuminating the windows. I watched from the shadows as the carefully curated atmosphere of luxury and exclusivity dissolved into chaos. Through the windows, I could see Brianna frantically moving through the crowd, her face illuminated by phone lights as she tried to maintain control of the situation. Many guests were already heading for the exits, complaining loudly. Several influencers continued filming, now documenting the disaster at what was supposed to be the event of the season. After about 15 minutes, my phone exploded with notifications. Text messages and calls from Brianna. Garrett, where are you? The power's out. All my live streams crashed. Please come fix this now. I didn't respond immediately, instead watching as more guests departed. The exclusive party that had been promoted across social media for weeks had lasted less than 5 hours and was ending in disappointed chaos rather than the viral success Brianna had planned. After most guests had left, I finally responded to her texts. I'll be there in 10 minutes. When I arrived at the front door, Brianna was waiting, illuminated by candles and looking furious. Trevor stood behind her, equally angry. Where have you been? She demanded. Everything is ruined. I was locked in the basement, remember? I had to use the exterior door to get out. Can you fix the power or not? Trevor interjected. Probably, I said calmly. What happened exactly? How should we know? Brianna snapped. We were in the middle of a major sponsored live stream when everything went dark. I've got sponsors asking for refunds, Garrett. I followed them through the house, noting the mess left behind by departing guests. Spilled drinks soaked into our parents' carpets, cigarette burns marked the wooden tables, and someone had knocked over a potted plant that had been in our family for years. Looks like things got out of hand, I observed. Just fix the power, Trevor demanded. Some of us have real careers to maintain. I walked outside to the electrical panel, Brianna and Trevor following close behind. I made a show of examining the breakers. That's strange, I said. These were switched off manually. This wasn't a power outage or electrical failure. What does that mean? Brianna asked. It means someone deliberately cut the power to the house, I explained, flipping the breakers back on. Lights immediately flooded back on inside the house. Who would do that? Trevor wondered aloud. I looked directly at Brianna. Someone who might have been locked in the basement and needed to send a message, perhaps? Her eyes widened with realization, then narrowed with fury. You did this? You deliberately sabotaged my event? I prefer to think of it as enforcing the house rules you agreed to but completely ignored, I replied calmly. Trevor stepped toward me aggressively. Do you have any idea how much money she lost tonight? How much damage this does to her brand? Speaking of damage, I gestured toward the house. And speaking of money, I think we should discuss the #HelpingHearts Fund. Trevor looked confused, but Brianna's face drained of color. This isn't the time, she hissed. Actually, it's exactly the time, I said. Before any accusations start flying about ruined parties. Trevor's aggressive posture hadn't changed. He took another step toward me, his hands clenched into fists. I don't know what you're talking about, but you need to compensate Brianna for the damage you've caused tonight. I stood my ground, refusing to be intimidated. Before you do something you'll regret, Trevor, you might want to ask your girlfriend about the charity fundraiser she's been running. Don't listen to him, Brianna interjected quickly. He's just trying to deflect from what he did. I pulled out my phone. I have screenshots of everything, Brianna. The spreadsheets showing only $5,000 out of $30,000 actually went to charity. The document with your expense justifications for using donation money on designer clothes and restaurants. Trevor's expression shifted as he turned to look at Brianna. What is he talking about? He's twisting things, she insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. The fundraiser has administrative costs, that's normal. Administrative costs that coincidentally fund your lifestyle? I scrolled through my phone and held up a screenshot. Here's your spreadsheet showing a $5,000 withdrawal for campaign management on the same day you posted about your new Louis Vuitton bag. Trevor stepped back, his aggressive stance relaxing as confusion spread across his face. Brianna, tell me you're not using charity money for personal expenses. It's more complicated than that, she stammered. I'm the face of the campaign. Maintaining a certain image is part of the marketing strategy. Marketing strategy? I repeated incredulously. You're telling people their donations are helping sick children when most of the money is helping you buy luxury items. Let me see those, Trevor demanded, holding his hand out for my phone. I showed him the screenshots while keeping the phone in my hand. His expression darkened as he swiped through the evidence. This isn't just unethical, I explained. It's illegal. Charity fraud carries serious penalties. Brianna's composure cracked. Tears welled in her eyes as she realized she couldn't talk her way out of this situation. It started small, she admitted. Just covering some expenses related to promoting the fundraiser. But then it did so well, and I needed to keep up appearances with the other influencers. By stealing from sick kids? Trevor asked, his voice sharp with disbelief. I didn't steal, she protested. Some money did go to the hospital. More than they would have received otherwise. That's not how charity fundraising works, I said. When you tell people 100% of their donations help sick children, that's exactly where the money should go. Brianna's tears flowed freely now, her carefully applied makeup running down her cheeks. You don't understand the pressure. Everyone in my circle has designer everything. They all travel to exotic locations and eat at the best restaurants. How was I supposed to keep up? By earning it honestly? I suggested. Or accepting your actual financial reality instead of living a lie? Trevor had backed away from both of us, scrolling through his own phone. The hashtag Helping Hearts Fund is blowing up right now, he said. But not in a good way. People at the party are posting about the power outage and connecting it to questions about where donation money actually went. Brianna grabbed her own phone in panic and stared at the screen. No, 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 she whispered. This can't be happening. I watched as she frantically tapped at her phone, presumably trying to delete incriminating posts or control the narrative. It's too late for that, I told her. Once something's online, it never really goes away. She looked up at me, mascara streaking down her face. Please, Garrett. You have to help me. I'll return the money, I promise. I'll make it right. For a moment I saw my little sister again, the girl who would run to me with scraped knees, trusting me to fix everything. But this wasn't a skin knee. This was fraud, exploitation, and a profound breach of trust. Here's what's going to happen, I said firmly. First, you're going to issue a public apology taking full responsibility. Second, you're going to return every cent of the donations to the contributors or transfer it directly to the hospital, your choice, but it happens tomorrow. Third, you're going to clean up this house before our parents get back. Brianna nodded quickly, relief washing over her face. Yes, I'll do all of that. Thank you, Garrett. Trevor, however, had been quietly edging toward the door during our conversation. I think I should go, he said, not meeting either of our eyes. Trevor? Brianna looked shocked. You're leaving? Now? I need to distance myself from this situation, he said, his influencer persona firmly back in place. My followers expect certain ethical standards, and I can't be associated with this. Are you serious? Brianna's voice cracked. After everything we've built together? We didn't build anything real, he replied coldly. That's the problem. With that, he walked out, leaving Brianna staring after him in disbelief. I almost felt sorry for her, watching another facade in her carefully constructed life crumble. Almost. He just showed his true colors, I said. Better to know now. She didn't respond, just slumped against the wall, looking defeated. The next morning, I returned to the house to find Brianna had made progress cleaning up. She looked exhausted but managed a weak smile when I entered. I posted the apology, she said, showing me her phone. And I've started processing refunds. It's going to take a while to contact everyone. I read her public statement, which seemed genuinely remorseful. Maybe this would be the wake-up call she needed. Later that afternoon, I checked social media to see how her apology was being received. To my shock, instead of continuing to take responsibility, Brianna had posted new content shifting blame onto me. Devastated to share that my own brother sabotaged the charity event and is now threatening me unless I shut down the fundraiser completely. The post read. Some people can't stand seeing others succeed. Don't worry, I won't let this stop our mission to help those children. She had turned the narrative completely around, painting herself as the victim and me as the villain. Even worse, she had posted a link to a new and improved donation page for the same fraudulent fund. When I called her, she didn't answer. My text messages went unread. She had no intention of making things right. She was doubling down on her fraud and using me as a scapegoat to generate sympathy and likely more donations. That evening, as I sat in my apartment trying to decide what to do next, I received a call from Jason. "Have you seen what Brianna's posting?" he asked without preamble. "Yeah," I sighed. "She's turned this whole thing around on me. People are believing her, man. She's actually getting support and probably more donations. You need to set the record straight." "How?" "She has 30,000 followers. I have a private account with 200 friends." Jason was quiet for a moment. "Remember what we talked about yesterday? About having enough evidence?" I knew what he was suggesting. "You think I should report her? If she's continuing to defraud people and now publicly slandering you?" "Yes, I do." The decision weighed heavily on me. This wasn't just some stranger committing fraud, this was my sister, despite how much she had changed. But she had made her choice, and now I had to make mine. The police station was quiet when I arrived the next morning. I had spent the night organizing all my evidence, including screenshots, photos, and a timeline of events. As I approached the front desk, doubt crept in. Was I really about to report my own sister to the authorities? "Can I help you?" asked the officer at the desk, her nameplate reading, "Officer Reynolds." "I need to report a charity fraud," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. She directed me to a small interview room where I waited for nearly 20 minutes before a plainclothes detective entered. "I'm Detective Morgan," he introduced himself, setting a folder on the table. "I understand you're here about a charity fraud case?" I nodded and began explaining the situation, starting with Brianna's fundraiser and showing him the evidence I had collected. I tried to remain factual, though my voice occasionally betrayed my emotional connection to the case. "Let me get this straight," Detective Morgan said after I finished. "Your sister created a fundraiser supposedly for Portland Children's Hospital, raised approximately $30,000, but only donated around $5,000. The rest she used for personal expenses while continuing to solicit donations under false pretenses." "That's correct," I confirmed. "And now she's continuing the fundraiser despite promising you she would shut it down and return the money." "Yes." "She's also publicly accusing me of sabotaging her charity work to generate sympathy and potentially more donations." Detective Morgan reviewed my evidence carefully. "This is actually quite comprehensive. Most fraud cases don't come to us with such well-documented evidence." He looked up at me. "You understand this will likely result in criminal charges against your sister?" I swallowed hard but nodded. "I understand. I tried to handle this privately first, but she's continuing to defraud people. It's not right. We'll need to investigate further, verify your evidence, and track the money trail officially," he explained. "But based on what you've shown me, there's certainly enough to open a case." Over the next week, I answered additional questions from Detective Morgan and provided access to my parents' house where some of Brianna's financial documents remained. I hadn't yet told our parents what was happening, hoping to spare them the shock until charges were actually filed. They were due back from their cruise in just a few days. Meanwhile, Brianna continued posting on social media, apparently unaware of the investigation. She had pivoted her content to portray herself as persevering through family betrayal while continuing her important charity work. Her new fundraiser had already collected several $1,000s from sympathetic followers. 9 days after I filed the report, Detective Morgan called me. "We're moving forward with the case," he informed me. "We've verified your evidence and found additional financial records that support the fraud charges. We'll be arresting your sister tomorrow." "Arresting her?" I hadn't fully processed that this would involve Brianna in handcuffs. "Standard procedure for fraud cases of this magnitude," he explained. She'll be processed and likely released on bail pending trial. Can you tell me when exactly? I asked. I should be the one to tell our parents. They're returning from vacation tomorrow. Detective Morgan agreed to wait until afternoon to make the arrest, giving me time to break the news to our parents first. Robert and Catherine Wilson arrived home from their Mediterranean cruise tanned, relaxed, and completely unprepared for the bomb I was about to drop. I met them at their house, which I had thoroughly cleaned to remove all evidence of Brianna's party. "Garrett, what a nice surprise!" my mother exclaimed as they walked in. "We weren't expecting you until dinner." "Mom, Dad, I need to talk to you about something serious," I began, gesturing toward the living room sofa. Their expressions immediately shifted from joy to concern as they sat down. "Is everything all right? Are you in some kind of trouble?" my father asked. "It's not me," I said gently. "It's Brianna." Over the next 30 minutes, I explained everything: the fraudulent charity, my discovery, her refusal to make amends, and finally, the police investigation. I showed them the same evidence I had provided to the authorities. My mother's hand covered her mouth in shock while my father's face hardened with each new detail. "This can't be right," my mother whispered. "Brianna wouldn't steal from charity." "I wish that were true," I said, pulling up her social media accounts to show them her latest posts. "She's still collecting donations even now." "Where is she?" my father asked, his voice tight with anger and disappointment. "At her apartment, I assume." "But Dad, there's something else you need to know. The police are arresting her this afternoon." "Arresting her?" My mother's voice rose in panic. "Can't they just make her return the money?" "It's gone beyond that," I explained. "She's committed multiple counts of fraud. This is a criminal matter now." My father stood up and paced the room. "We taught her better than this. How could she do something so dishonest?" I had no answer that could ease their pain. We sat together in heavy silence until my father finally spoke again. "You did the right thing, Garrett. It couldn't have been easy." His words lifted a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying. I had feared they might blame me for turning Brianna in. Later that afternoon, Detective Morgan called to inform me that Brianna had been arrested during a live stream in which she had been soliciting more donations. Her followers had witnessed the entire thing, with clips of the arrest quickly spreading across social media platforms. Brianna spent one night in jail before our parents posted bail. The conditions of her release included no fundraising activities and limited social media use. When she returned to our parents' house, she refused to speak to me, maintaining that I had betrayed her out of jealousy. The media quickly picked up the story, dubbing it the influencer fraud scandal. Local news ran segments analyzing the case, and several larger outlets published articles about deceptive practices in influencer-led charity campaigns. Brianna's name and face were everywhere, but not in the way she had always dreamed. Trevor, predictably, made a lengthy video completely disavowing any knowledge of Brianna's actions and positioning himself as another victim of her deception. His follower count actually increased in the aftermath. Most of Brianna's influencer friends abandoned her immediately. Madison, Ashley, and Ryan all made public statements expressing their shock and disappointment, claiming they had no idea about the fraudulent nature of the fundraiser despite having promoted it on their own platforms. After consulting with her court-appointed attorney, Brianna eventually accepted a plea deal. She would plead guilty to a reduced charge of misdemeanor fraud, pay full restitution to all donors, complete 200 hours of community service, and serve 3 years of probation. The conviction would remain on her record, a permanent reminder of her actions. Throughout the legal proceedings, our family dynamics fractured further. Our parents were devastated but stood by Brianna while also supporting my decision to report her. They paid for her legal fees and helped her navigate the consequences of her actions, but the disappointment in their eyes was unmistakable whenever they looked at her. Brianna, for her part, gradually shifted from blaming me to acknowledging her own responsibility, at least in private. Her public persona remained carefully crafted, now focusing on her journey of accountability and Learning from mistakes. Terms her lawyer had likely suggested to rehabilitate her image. The influencer lifestyle she had cultivated collapsed almost overnight. Sponsors canceled contracts, collaboration offers disappeared, and her follower count plummeted. The lavish parties and designer clothes were replaced with community service at local shelters and a part-time job at our father's friend's accounting firm. Reality had finally caught up with the fantasy she had created online. 6 months after Brianna's sentencing, the acute pain of the situation had dulled to a persistent ache for our family. She had completed nearly half of her community service hours, working primarily at a local food bank where she wasn't allowed to post photos or use the experience for social media content. The strict probation terms prohibited any fundraising activities and required transparency disclosures on all sponsored content, effectively dismantling her influencer business model. The restitution payments had wiped out her savings and put her in debt, forcing her to move back into our parents' house temporarily. Each weekend, I would visit for family dinner, and the atmosphere remained tense despite everyone's best efforts. On one such Sunday evening, after our parents had gone upstairs, Brianna and I found ourselves alone in the kitchen washing dishes, a chore we had shared throughout childhood. "You know," she said, breaking the uncomfortable silence, "I hated you for months after the arrest." I continued drying a plate, unsure how to respond. "I convinced myself you reported me out of jealousy or spite," she continued. "It was easier than admitting what I did was wrong." "And now?" I asked cautiously. She handed me a glass to dry. "Now I'm starting to understand why you did it. I crossed a line, and then I refused to make it right when you gave me the chance." It wasn't quite an apology, but it was the closest thing to acknowledgement I had received from her. "I never wanted to see you arrested, Brianna. I just wanted you to stop taking advantage of people's goodwill." She nodded slowly. "My therapist says I got caught up in maintaining appearances. That I lost sight of what was real and what was just for show." Court-mandated therapy had been part of her sentencing, and I was grateful to hear it seemed to be having some impact. "Do you miss it?" I asked. "The influencer lifestyle?" She considered the question seriously. "Parts of it. The validation, definitely. The feeling of importance when brands would contact me. But I don't miss the constant pressure to seem perfect, or the competitions with other influencers over who had the most expensive things." We finished the dishes in silence, but something had shifted between us. A small crack had appeared in the wall that had formed since her arrest. Over the next few months, our parents suggested family therapy sessions. Initially reluctant, I agreed for their sake, and to my surprise, these sessions became valuable neutral ground where we could express feelings without immediate judgment. During one particularly breakthrough session, Brianna finally addressed her. "You're embarrassing," comment that had started the whole chain of events. "I said that because I was insecure," she admitted, tears forming in her eyes. "Your life has always been so solid and authentic. You know who you are and you're comfortable with it. I was constantly pretending, constantly worried about being exposed as a fraud, which is exactly what happened. I wanted to make you feel small because I felt small around you." Her words stunned me. All this time, I had assumed she looked down on my ordinary life and practical career. The idea that she might have envied my authenticity had never occurred to me. "I never thought less of you for being an influencer," I told her. "I just wanted you to do it honestly. I know that now." She nodded. "And I'm trying to figure out who I am without all the filters and sponsorships." As Brianna's probation continued, she gradually rebuilt her life on more authentic foundations. The accounting job became full-time, and she discovered she actually had a talent for numbers when she applied herself. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Perhaps if she had embraced this skill earlier, she might have built a legitimate career instead of resorting to fraud. Her social media presence transformed as well. Gone were the carefully staged photos and borrowed designer clothes. Instead, she occasionally posted about everyday experiences, books she was reading, or simple meals she had cooked. Her follower count was a fraction of what it once was, but the engagement seemed more genuine. A year after the arrest, Brianna completed her community service hours and continued working at the food bank as a volunteer. She had moved into her own modest apartment again, one that actually matched her true financial situation, and was slowly paying off her restitution debts. Our relationship remained complicated but was gradually healing. We would never return to the innocent closeness of our childhood, but we were finding a new equilibrium based on hard-earned honesty. During a hike together, something we had started doing monthly as a way to reconnect, Brianna paused at a scenic overlook and turned to me. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" "For caring enough to stop me when I was spiraling. If you hadn't reported me, I would have kept going until the consequences were much worse. I might have ended up with jail time instead of probation." I hadn't expected this level of reflection from her, and it caught me off guard. "You're welcome," I managed. "That's what family does, even when it's difficult. I've learned that real connections matter more than follower counts," she said, looking out at the view. "And that no amount of likes can fill the emptiness of living a lie." As we continued our hike, I reflected on my own journey through this ordeal. I had learned about standing firm in my values even when it meant difficult consequences. I had discovered that caring about someone sometimes means being willing to be the bad guy in their story temporarily. And I had gained a deeper appreciation for my authentic, if ordinary, life. The experience had changed our entire family. Our parents had been forced to examine how their parenting might have contributed to Brianna's desperate need for validation. I had confronted my own resentments and insecurities about my sister's seemingly glamorous life. And Brianna had begun the hard work of building an identity based on substance rather than appearance. None of us would have chosen this painful path to growth, but we were all, in our own ways, stronger for having walked it. Today, when people ask me about the influencer fraud scandal that occasionally still gets mentioned in articles about social media ethics, I don't focus on the cutting of power or the arrest. Instead, I talk about redemption, about how sometimes the harshest consequences can lead to the most meaningful growth. Brianna and I will never be the inseparable siblings of our childhood again. Too much has happened, too many harsh words exchanged. But we're building something new, a relationship based on honesty, mutual respect, and the understanding that true connection doesn't require filters, staging, or fraud. In a world increasingly dominated by carefully curated online personas, there's a profound freedom in simply being real, flaws, ordinary jobs, modest homes, and all. It's a lesson my sister learned the hard way, but one that has ultimately given her something her influencer life never could: peace with herself. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that hurt someone you love, but ultimately helped them? Or have you experienced the freedom that comes from stepping away from trying to impress others? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need this reminder that authenticity always wins in the end. Thank you for listening to my story today.